After Viper's graduation project was plagiarized by the school beauty, it was me who stood up and spoke out for him. After the school beauty was spurned by thousands of people, she couldn't bear the pressure and committed suicide by jumping off a building. Later, I became a well-known pianist. The day before I was about to participate in the international piano competition, Viper personally smashed my 10 fingers with a hammer and laughed maniacally. I originally planned to confess my love to her with that graduation project, but you made that gift kill her. Aria, do you think you deserve to die? When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when Viper was wrongly accused of plagiarizing the school beauty's graduation project. Viper asked me humbly, Aria, do you believe that I'm the original creator? When Viper's graduation project was exposed as plagiarizing Vixen's, almost immediately, having fulfilled my obsession, I suspected Vixen, because she had been looking worried these past few days. But when Viper's manuscript was stolen, she quickly returned to normal. I knew that Vixen usually had Viper do her homework for her. And sometimes, Viper even asked me to help her with it. A person like her couldn't have created an excellent graduation project. So, while everyone was leaving school, I went to her desk and rummaged through a pile of crumpled papers to find Viper's manuscript. I immediately handed it to the counselor, clearing Viper of the false accusation. The matter caused a big stir. After Vixen's parents came, they sincerely apologized to Viper and the teacher. Vixen's eyes were red from crying. She gave me a venomous look and then turned to Viper. Was everything you said about loving me a lie? Are you bewitched by this bitch? Fine, hadn't fulfilled Lansai. You have the guts. I'll show you by dying. I turned to look at Viper. His lips moved, but he didn't say anything. But I knew he must have been heartbroken. His left hand squeezed his thigh hard, trying to hold back from making a sound. I thought his reason had overcome his desire. Later, the school authorities demanded that Vixen's graduation certificate be revoked and refused to let her graduate. Coupled with the accusations from the whole school and the scolding from her parents, Vixen committed suicide. Since then, Viper started to pursue me. He brought me breakfast and milk tea every day. And this lasted for half a year. It seemed that the matter of Vixen was just a passing thing in his eyes. I thought this matter had just passed like that, but unexpectedly. Although Viper seemed to be deeply in love with me on the surface, he hated me to death in private. Pursuing me was just the first step of his revenge on me. After graduating, relying on his excellent graduation project, Viper quickly entered a leading music company. And soon after, he successively released divine songs that subverted the music industry, enjoying great prestige. I became a top pianist and continuously received invitations for international tours. Before going abroad, I happily went to find him to tell him this good news. He smiled and brought over a plate of my favorite snacks. Congratulations, great pianist. When you come back, I'll give you a surprise. My face turned red, and I was a little nervous. Was he finally going to confess his love? I picked up a snack and took a bite. Suddenly, I felt my head getting dizzy. And somehow, I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, my hands and feet were tied up, and Viper was holding a hammer with red eyes. I struggled in disbelief and stared at him fixedly. Viper, what are you going to do? Viper said coldly. I originally planned to confess my love to her with that graduation project. But I didn't expect you to drive her to death. Aria, do you think you deserve to die? I seemed to lose all my strength and thought back to all the past events. That year, he came to me pitifully and carefully asked if I believed him. This year, he held a hammer in his hand, his face full of hatred. He smashed my hands with the hammer, then picked up a funnel, connected it to my mouth, and frantically poured sleeping pills into it. My life, which should have been bright, came to an end like this. My eyes became heavier and heavier. But in the last moment, I saw the light again. I was reborn. Viper walked up to me dejectedly, with an inconceivable look of loss in his eyes. Aria, do you believe that I'm the original creator? I stared at him inferiorly, and said calmly, no. He looked at me in shock, as if he couldn't believe that I would say such a thing. Aren't you the one who always believes in me the most? I've been so good to you. But I didn't expect you to be just like those other people. Hearing him say this, I smiled. You've been getting close to Vixen everywhere. I suppose it's for the graduation project, right? I didn't expect you to be such a person. Now you're biting back. You're really shameless. Quite a few people gathered around. Viper's lips moved, but he was unable to refute. Because everyone was following my words to belittle him. Viper was arrogant and had few friends. Instead, he had made a lot of enemies. I was on the best terms with Viper usually. If even I didn't believe him, then no one else would believe him. Instead, there would be a lot of people who would kick him when he was down. Viper gritted his teeth and left in a sorry state. I went home and put on some light makeup, preparing to take my graduation project and participate in the campus party. When I arrived at the scene, I saw that there were already a lot of graduation projects piled up beside the teacher. I thought it was reasonable. There were so many graduating students. And who didn't want to get into a big company and take fewer detours? I also walked over and handed my graduation project to the teacher. The teacher looked at me with admiration. Not bad. You've put in a lot of effort. Not at all. It's all because of your good teaching. Teacher. I teach everyone the same way. But I even taught a scoundrel. I don't know if he's here today. Everyone around fell silent. Everyone knew who the teacher was scolding. But no one spoke up for him. Instead, they started to comfort the teacher. Suddenly, a beautiful female voice rang out. Teacher. This is my graduation project. Please take a look. Vixen pushed through the crowd and walked over gracefully. The teacher took it and, after looking at it, also showed a look of confusion. Did you really do this? Vixen nodded, looking a little nervous. I took a look and couldn't take my eyes away. Because her work was exactly the same as mine. The tutor pushed up the glasses on his nose and looked at the two of us. What's going on here? The people around also started to talk among themselves. What's this situation? Didn't she steal Viper's graduation project? Use your brains. Looking at Vixen's cold smile, I immediately realized that she was also reborn. But my work wasn't that easy to steal. I calmly said, Teacher, I still have the manuscript at home. And there are other classmates who can testify for me that she stole my graduation project. Actually, there was one more person who could provide ironclad evidence for me. But I didn't want to get involved with him for now. Yes, having fulfilled my sorry. Teacher. I've seen it. Several voices of agreement immediately sounded around me. 3 people simultaneously testified that they had seen my manuscript. I turned to look at Vixen. I had thought I would see a panicked expression on her face. But unexpectedly, she just shrugged inferiorly. You're friends after all. So your credibility is not high at all. And I also have a witness. My witness is definitely reliable enough. I frowned and stared at her quietly. She stretched out her hand. At this time, a tall man walked over. Viper. I frowned and heard Viper say coldly next. I can testify that this graduation project was independently designed by Vixen. Because she consulted me many times. And I've also seen this work. The previous exposure that Vixen stole my graduation project was purely a misunderstanding. In fact, Aria is the one who stole the graduation project. Everyone was speechless. And even the tutor now looked at me with suspicion. I was stunned for a moment and then fell silent. Everyone knew that I had a good relationship with Viper. Now that he had stood up to accuse me, it was undoubtedly the most powerful evidence. At the same time, I was afraid that I couldn't be sure of one thing: the reason why Viper was here today to slander me. Was it because I had done something that was the opposite of what I did in my previous life, causing a butterfly effect? Or was he also reborn? If both Viper and Vixen were reborn and joined hands to try to kill me. Thinking of this, I felt a chill in my heart. For a moment, the originally quiet hall became extremely chaotic. The tutor slapped the table heavily. Enough. The school authorities will find out the truth and give everyone an explanation. Dismiss. I was about to leave with a heavy heart. But Vixen blocked my way at the corner of the stairs. You don't really think you have a chance of winning, do you? Just wait to be disgraced and cry in your bed at night, plagiarist. I sneered. pushed past her, and turned to leave. When I got home, the classmate group was already abuzz with discussions about this matter. Most people didn't believe that I would steal Vixen's idea. After all, I had always been excellent in both character and learning and was a leader in all aspects. On the contrary, Vixen's academic performance was average, and she always had a group of bad friends around her. Fortunately, many classmates specially sent me private messages to comfort me, saying that they firmly believed that I was wronged. This made me feel much better, and I gratefully replied to their messages. Early the next morning, the school authorities arranged for people to visit my home. They carefully listened to my testimony and also took away several pieces of evidence. That is, the drafts I had painstakingly written at the initial stage of my design. In my opinion, this was a victory without any suspense. I couldn't be labeled as a plagiarist. Evil will be punished, and Vixen will surely be exposed for what she is. 3 days later, the school authorities announced the investigation result without any warning. Looking at the notice of degree cancellation in my hand, my head felt swollen, and there was an inexplicable soreness at the corners of my eyes. The result of 3 years of hard study was being expelled from school for a trumped-up charge. The tutors looked at me with disgust, and the classmates opened their eyes wide, as if they couldn't believe it. Vixen looked extremely pleased. Viper stood beside her, fawning like grabbing the corner of her clothes. The two of them were very intimate. I don't believe it. Did you really investigate? Is this the first conservatory of music in the capital city? I'm going to sue you. I shouted at the tutor with all my anger. All I got in reply was silence and a principal's stern voice. Nonsense. You have the nerve to turn the tables when you've done something wrong. A student like you is simply a disgrace to our school. After a long time, a torrential rain started to fall, and the crowd gradually dispersed. I stood there, feeling at a loss, not understanding why the school authorities would fob me off with such a result, because of the exposure of this matter. After graduation, I was successively withdrawn the job offers by 7 companies before I could start working. They said that because of what happened to me at school, I had been blacklisted by the industry. As a fresh graduate with a stain even before leaving school, no company was willing to take me in. I couldn't bear it any longer and took the initiative to contact the media, hoping to clear my name by exposing the school's actions. However, after listening to what I had to say, the media director just smiled at me helplessly. Aria, I can understand how you feel, but even if I report this matter, it will be suppressed. You can understand that, right? Unless you can provide more powerful evidence, our Capital Entertainment won't let go of this top news. Looking forward to our next cooperation. I got up dejectedly and left. Looking at the gloomy sky, I felt a strong sense of powerlessness for the first time. After half a month of struggling, I completely gave up. Neither human witnesses nor physical evidence worked. It was obvious that they had connections higher up. I realized that I was just a reborn person and didn't have an invincible system like in novels. Since I couldn't solve the difficulties now, I could only deal with the problem of food and clothing first. I found a job in a bakery. While working, I also inquired about the whereabouts of Viper and Vixen. One day, a somewhat familiar male voice suddenly came from outside the door. 2 loaves of bread and a piece of tiramisu. Please. Without looking up, I replied inferiorly. Okay. Rye or wheat? He suddenly burst out laughing. I didn't expect you to be quite suitable for this job. I looked up and was a bit angry when I saw who it was. Leo, did you come here just to mock me because you have nothing better to do? Although we had some conflicts at school, you don't have to be so petty. Do you? Leo was a popular and talented student at school, always ranking first every year. But I surpassed him and pushed him to the second place year after year. He was quite resentful and had deliberately picked on me several times before. Now that he saw me in such a down and out state, did he want to mock me? After paying, Leo raised his eyebrows. Actually, what I wanted to say is that only a fool would believe that you stole the graduation project. I couldn't help but look up, feeling a bit sarcastic in my heart. After being reborn, it turned out that the only one who believed in me was my sworn enemy. Those so-called good friends in the past had already launched a fierce attack on me. My eyes felt a bit sour. And I couldn't help covering my eyes with my hand as tears kept falling. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want a musical genius to be buried like this. Come to work at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late. After saying that, Leo turned around and left. I glanced at the bread bag left on the chopping board. Quickly untied my apron. Ran out. And grabbed Leo's arm. Wait a minute. Your bread. Leo looked back at me, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. Who wants to eat it? It's dry and hard to swallow. I hate eating bread the most. I looked at him and didn't let go. Leo thought for a moment. Reached out to take it. And took a bite. It tastes as bad as I expected. Oh. By the way, heading fossil-wide sigh. This tiramisu is for you. Didn't you say you wanted to eat it in your WeChat moments? Also, there are a few new songs in the music industry. All released by Long Tang Records. Since you've entered this industry, you should listen to them. I nodded and watched him leave. I didn't expect that Leo, who always had a gloomy face and spoke harshly, was actually a rare good person in this world. After he left, I went back to the bakery. During my break, I opened the mobile music app and took a look. Long Tang Records had released 2 songs in a row. Spring Has Gone. Is It Worth It? Both songs mainly featured a blues melody. They were extremely melodious and gave people a feeling of regret and dissatisfaction. And I was very familiar with these 2 songs. It was just because these were the popular works I had released in my previous life. And the 2 singles had dominated the charts for a whole year. Looking at the composer's signature, Vixen, I was filled with anger. She didn't even change the names of the songs she stole from me. She was really too bold. Not only that, all the top 10 songs on the new song chart were by Vixen without exception. By stealing the music from my previous life, her net worth had actually risen all the way, and she was hailed as the monthly rising star and the new king of the music industry. There was a video in which she was holding a trophy at the awards ceremony, stuttering as she talked about the creative journey. Yes. When you steal from others, where does the creative journey come from? A cold smile appeared on my lips. Did she really think I was a naive and sweet person? My music has my own unique mark. I'll make you fall in the same way you climbed up. The next day, my interview at Fengyan Records went smoothly. Although it was directly conducted by the boss, he still praised me for my high musical attainments. Good. I'm starting to believe that you're innocent now. Someone with this level of musical ability, how could they possibly plagiarize? How could they need to plagiarize? It's just nonsense. I smiled. Thank you for your understanding. The boss stood up with a smile. Looking forward to your excellent work. Then, went out a lull sigh. Everyone left the room. I looked around. But Leo wasn't there. Outside the glass door, a black figure turned and left the moment the interview ended. I smiled. I happened to have a new inspiration recently. I quickly went back to my room and started creating. Improving the music score is a very tedious process. But for this piece, I didn't plan to change it at all. I wanted to write everything into the score and present it in the most natural way. The bitterness, betrayal, and the small spark of hope that ignited in the darkness after despair. It only took me 5 minutes to compose the song. I signed it, as the light. I submitted it. And soon the score I created in 5 minutes appeared in the meeting room. I never expected that this company would be so efficient. The boss personally reviewed it. And then the lyrics, the singer, and a series of arrangements were all completed within half an hour. At the latest, I would see my work on all major music apps in a day. Leave the lyrics to Zhao Wang. As for the lead singer, this song is quite difficult. A singer needs to have both a deep and a high-pitched voice. And the high-pitched part should at least reach C5. Of course, I hope it can reach E5. After all, this is the debut work of our new member, and I want everything to be up to the most perfect standard. Everyone looked at each other, and no one spoke. I'll do it. Leave the lyric writing to me too, Leo said slowly. The boss was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, then you have a heavy workload. In order to catch up with the newcomer award, you must complete all these tasks within 3 days. Can you do it? Leo nodded, yes. Okay. The meeting is adjourned. I didn't expect the meeting to end so quickly. In my previous life, every meeting in Longtang Records would last for a long time. And it would take at least half a year for a song to be released. Aria. Come to my music room later. I need your help with the lyric writing. I nodded, no problem. When I went to his music room, he had already finished writing. The first draft is already done. Take a look and raise any questions you have now. I was stunned for a moment. So fast? I took it and looked at it. My eyes filled with shock. The lyrics he wrote. He actually condensed everything that happened at school into the lyrics. My eyes felt sour again. Fortunately, hadn't felt so. Fortunately. I almost shed tears again. It's very well written. Didn't cry? You've made progress. I'm not a child. You are in my eyes. Don't act like you know everything. He turned around, and a rare look of loneliness appeared on his face. Just because I've experienced everything, I can empathize with others better. I didn't say anything more. Leo led me to the recording studio. I didn't expect that he would be so proficient in this song. He was already quite skilled after recording it once. I also truly witnessed what an E5 note was. It was terrifying. And I was afraid that the cup beside me would shatter. He sang this very depressing song with a crazy feeling. Especially the final high-pitched part. I seemed to directly see the picture of myself facing the condemnation of thousands of people in the past. Feeling powerless and angry. And he actually sang it perfectly. Sigh. The tears that should have been shed couldn't be held back after all. When he finished singing, I was already in tears. I didn't even know when he came to my side. My face was a bit wet. And Leo silently took a tissue to wipe the tears off my face. Okay. We can complete all the tasks today. We can solve the problems that arise in the next 2 days and then release the song. I nodded firmly. 2 days later, The Light appeared on all major platforms. As soon as it was released, it directly topped the charts and firmly occupied the first place. On the first day of its release, 5 million copies of the record were sold, and it can be said that it became popular all over the country. When I opened Weibo, in addition to the new song, The Light, there was actually another thing that was pushed to the top. The incident of stealing the graduation project in the Capital Music School. The comments below directly exceeded 10,000. This song corresponds to this incident. I won't accept any refutation. This incident caused a big stir at that time. I don't know why it suddenly disappeared. There must be something fishy going on. I heard that this divine song was created by the girl who was accused of stealing the graduation project. With such strength, does she need to steal? This is ridiculous. There must be a hidden proof. I suggest a thorough investigation. The proletariat all over the world must unite. We can't let the paid trolls and the giants act recklessly. The behavior of fabricating facts and the truth that will must not be tolerated. I looked carefully at the last sentence and opened the person's Weibo homepage. It was a first-level small account, and the ID was picked up a mermaid. I don't know which stranger was speaking up for me. Anyway, heading fulfilled my session. I thanked them in my heart. A few days later, I received an invitation from the program team. And I also received a text message from Leo. Vixen and Viper will also go. This is just a traffic gimmick created by the TV station. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. It doesn't matter. My heart warmed. But at the same time, my gaze became more determined. I'm going. Of course I'm going. The truth of the past has already been stirred up. At this time, I need to make more efforts to let the truth surface. I went to the backstage of the program group. Vixen and Viper were sitting together. And they both stared at me and sneered in unison. I heard that you recently joined Vixen Records. There's actually a company that wants you. You plagiarist. I sneered. Who is the real plagiarist? The truth will come out sooner or later. After saying that, I got up and left. Just as I opened the door and my hand was still on the doorknob, a huge force pushed the door back. The door frame clamped my hand hard. Blood immediately appeared. And a searing pain swept over me. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. Viper sneered coldly beside me. I gritted my teeth and covered my hand. trembling with pain. At this moment, Vixen also came over. Did you pinch your hand? Do you want to go to the hospital? The staff members beside rushed over immediately. They showed their concern for me. And the doctor bandaged my hand. This is a difficult situation. You're supposed to play the piano tonight. Can you still play like this? The staff members were sweating and asked me nervously. I gritted my teeth. The pain was a bit beyond my limit of endurance. Come on. It's just a pinched hand. You're not that delicate. Are you? Yeah. After all, this is a program. If all the guests are like you, can the program still go on? Viper and Vixen chimed in one after another. But they didn't know that tonight. I wasn't the only one who came. A tall, dark figure stepped forward, picked up Vixen's hand, and put it directly on the door frame. Then came the sound of the door slamming shut. At the critical moment, Viper blocked his hand in the door frame with his own hand. But this pinch was much stronger than the force he used before. Cracks appeared on the door frame. Viper let out a scream and fell to the ground. His hand became visibly swollen and red. Everyone present was stunned. Vixen looked at Leo in shock. You stinky man. I'm not done with you. Leo's eyes were cold. And he raised his hand and slapped Vixen in the face. Slap. There was a crisp sound. A trace of blood oozed from the corner of Vixen's mouth. It was obvious that she was extremely angry. She was just about to curse. But because of Leo's gloomy expression, she just shrank her neck in fear. There should be a limit to bullying others. Leo let go of his hand, and Vixen collapsed on the ground weakly like a ball of cotton. He turned back to look at me. How's your hand? I shook my head. Although it still hurt. It was much better than those two. None of the staff members dared to intervene. They could only stutter and say, please stop making trouble. We still have a program to do. Vixen cursed. What a lousy program. We're not participating anymore. You must participate. Leo's cold gaze directly fell on Vixen. Vixen was suddenly at a loss for words. She was indeed more obedient after being beaten. At this moment, Viper laughed loudly. You like Aria, don't you? Let me tell you. When she was chasing me, I didn't want her at all. Do you have a sense of superiority just because you picked up a used woman? You're nothing. I'm telling you. You're just a guy who picks up used women. Leo's face immediately darkened. And he rushed straight at Viper. He punched him frantically and was then pulled apart by the staff. It was very lively tonight. The program group wanted to cancel the program. But because neither Long Ting nor Feng Yan, the two major companies, was willing to pay the liquidated damages, and they were blaming each other's people. After arguing for a long time, in the end, the program had to continue reluctantly. This kept the makeup artists very busy. Viper and Vixen were both beaten up like pigs' heads. But they managed to make them look like they had gained a few pounds. The injury to my finger from being pinched by the door, which seemed serious before, now seemed like a minor injury. After this little episode, we came to the live scene of the program. The host asked a few questions with a smile and then directly started to ask pointed questions. He asked if we had any new works recently. I moved my fingers. And a sharp pain came. There was no relief at all. While Vixen only had an injury on her face. Her hands were fine and it didn't affect her playing the piano. It would be very disadvantageous for me if I had to play the piano later. I knew very well that if I performed poorly, their hired internet trolls would take advantage of the situation and guide the public opinion. And the truth would be even more difficult to come out. Just as I was extremely anxious, Vixen gave me a provocative look, and then took out the piece of music Mountain Fire, from my previous life, claiming with a smile that it was her new work and hadn't been released on major platforms yet. The corners of my mouth curled into a smile. If it was this piece of music, I had practiced it countless times in my previous life and could play it with my eyes closed. The injury to my hand then became an insignificant problem. It wouldn't be long before the truth and falsehood were distinguished. Then Vixen sat in front of the piano and started playing. The beautiful melody was mixed with wrong notes. And she made a mistake every 5 seconds on average. The piece of music lasted for more than 3 minutes. And she actually made more than 30 mistakes. The audience on the scene were all experts. They frowned. And even after the music ended, there was still no applause. The host could only clap awkwardly, which led to a sparse round of applause from the whole audience. Vixen made a very terrible mistake. In fact, it didn't matter if she made mistakes. But the problem was that she didn't even know she had made mistakes, which was very troublesome. Thank you all. I will continue to work hard in the future. Saying such a sentence to the camera, I sat on the sofa and tried my best not to laugh out loud. At this time, the host coughed twice. It seemed that she was also enduring it with great difficulty. Ms. Aria, do you have a piece of music prepared? I looked at the audience. Leo was sitting in the first row, with a gratified smile on his face. For some reason, he looked a bit like a father looking at his daughter. I nodded, yes. And I will give the national audience a surprise. The host was stunned for a moment. And a big smile appeared on her face. This was a live broadcast, and there was hardly one guest in 10 shows who dared to speak like this. Okay. We're all ears. I stood up and walked to the piano. I'd like to present a piece of music. Mountain Fire. To everyone. The whole audience was immediately stunned. Vixen and Viper opened their mouths in disbelief, unable to believe that I was so bold. Only Leo showed a genuine smile. I had never seen him smile so happily before. I also felt relieved and closed my eyes. I calmly played the piece of Mountain Fire to the end. The whole audience looked at me in surprise. And then there was thunderous applause. Leo clapped his hands and gave me a thumbs-up gesture. In contrast, Vixen and Viper had livid faces and were fidgeting. Even a layman could tell the difference. Not to mention that Vixen made so many mistakes. By comparison, the difference was obvious. I'd like to ask Miss Vixen. You said earlier that this is your original work and has never been released on any platform. Then, went out a lull sigh. Why did you make more than 30 wrong notes? Why can I play the whole piece of music without any mistakes? The host subconsciously picked up the conversation. Yes, yes. Why is that? As soon as these words were spoken, the host wanted to slap herself. This completely stirred up the public opinion. Vixen stammered, and Vixen stammered, no. It's not. You stole it. You stole my work. How dare you bring it to the program? You have a lot of nerve. The whole scene was very quiet. And the suspicious gazes of the whole audience were directed at Vixen. With her flustered expression. No one could save her now. After all, this was a live broadcast. Let me tell you why. Because this is my work. And you stole my work. I emphasized the word stole very strongly. I just wanted to make her disgraced on this night. I had published 5 pieces of music in my previous life. She had used 3 of them one after another. And there was still Mountain Fire. Now there was only the last one left. I thought about it. Maybe she didn't make mistakes because of carelessness, but simply couldn't remember clearly. Who would carefully think about how the songs of the person who killed them in their previous life were written when they were reborn? Maybe, couldn't fulfill brand session. Even if she survived this night, she couldn't steal the last piece of music, because she simply couldn't remember it clearly. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. You're slandering me. She's slandering me. Vixen started shouting and rushed straight at me, raising her hand to slap me. I didn't even try to dodge, because I knew that someone would protect me. A tall figure stepped in front of me first. Slap. Leo grabbed her hand tightly. You want to hit someone when you've been exposed? There must be a limit to bullying others. Vixen let out a scream. Her wrist was already red and swollen from being pinched, and she fell heavily to the ground. Viper couldn't help but rush up, but he was quickly pinned to the ground by the security guards. Leo glanced at them. You're really humble, ridiculous, and childish. At this point, the program had to end. A group of people from the program group were glad that they had turned off the live broadcast when Vixen was causing trouble. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I walked out of the program group and was going to call a car to go home. A Porsche by the roadside flashed its lights. I walked over. Leo was waiting for me inside. Thank you. My knight in shining armor. The corners of Leo's mouth curled into a smile, and he slowly started the car. On the way, He wanted to turn on the music. I thought for a while and then smiled. Take me to a place with a piano. Leo stopped his hand that was about to turn on the music. And then turned the car around. He took me back to the program group again. Under the pretext of renting. He drove away the staff members. I looked at him helplessly. You're really domineering. Leo nodded. That's right. I've never been a gentle person from the beginning. I smiled. But you're very good to me. Leo was stunned. Probably. One has to do something meaningful. Helping you is meaningful. If you were a street beggar, of no value to me, I wouldn't even glance at you. Although his words were annoying to hear. I had to admit that he only spoke the truth. And perhaps that was what I admired about him. I slowly walked up to the piano. The next piece I'm going to play is called First Embrace. This was the last piece I composed in my previous life, containing all my yearnings for love. After the performance, Leo lit a cigarette and leaned against the wall with the cigarette between his lips. Can you understand it? I asked cautiously. He looked up at me. It makes me want to fall in love. Well, now you have a chance to. I smiled. Leo tilted his head and was amused by me. Not yet. You don't know how bad I can be. Vixen's Weibo account saw a large number of fans unfollowing her. In the end, it was hard for the public to believe that Vixen was actually the one who cried thief while being the thief herself. Since that day, the quality of Vixen's subsequent works declined sharply. And her performance on the show was also disappointing. The tipping point was the piece Mountain Fire, that we both played on the show that day. This is what it means to be hoisted by one's own petard. Just like in my previous life, I had fans again, and the number had already outnumbered Vixen's. The leader of the fan group was actually the ID I had looked at before. The one called Picked Up a Mermaid. He often chatted with me on Weibo, asking about my latest works and my troubles. If I was wronged or picked on online, he would tirelessly lead the charge. He was like a knight guarding a princess. At this time, my phone rang. It was a call from my assistant. Sis, take a look quickly. Viper is causing trouble again. He says you faked your performance on the show. And it wasn't you playing the piano at all. The video is on his homepage. Okay. I got it. I opened Viper's Weibo homepage. There was a new post with a video attached. The video showed me playing Mountain Fire. Viper's reason was that he accidentally pinched my hand. And I couldn't possibly play the piano well in a short time. Yet I played so well. So it was a fake performance. He also tagged the people from the program team. And they also confirmed that I was indeed pinched by him backstage that night. Even raw photos of me holding my hand in pain were posted. Most of the comments supported Viper and Vixen. Presumably, most of them were paid trolls? I smiled. What did this prove? Then I got up and went to the piano room, set up my phone, and started a live stream. It was just Mountain Fire. I could play it with my eyes closed. As soon as the live stream started, a number of viewers reached 50. And a large number of people continued to pour in. Without saying a word, I started playing. I played it 10 times in a row, knowing it by heart. After 10 times, an hour had passed. I was a bit tired and got up to end the live stream. This self-proof should be enough. I looked at the number of viewers in the live stream room. There were actually 5 million. The bullet comments were all like, sis, you're so beautiful. Sis, is this? Your hands are so beautiful. Sis, you play so well. I was amused. Hello, everyone. I'm ending the live stream. I did this just to prove myself. Suddenly, a bunch of bullet comments started asking me to stay. Some even asked when the next live stream would be. I smiled to myself. There probably wouldn't be a next time. My innocence had finally returned to me. The large number of paid trolls on the internet collapsed without a fight. Both Viper and Vixen's Weibo accounts were blocked. And Feng Yun Records became the #1 music company. Its influence was unprecedented. The company intended to promote me and Leo as a group to debut. Just like many predecessors. There was no way. So I had to agree to the company's request. One was the best composer. And the other was the best singer. We quickly became popular across the country. My fans and Leo's fans became one group. and they started shipping us as a CP. This kind of thing seemed contagious. Every day, people were spreading the rumor that Leo and I were together. Unexpectedly, on a sunny afternoon, at the company entrance, he actually proposed to me in public during a live stream. I was in tears and smiled as I held out my left hand, watching him put the ring on my finger with his own hands. At that moment, my eyes really felt sour. Just then, a hoarse and crazy male voice sounded. Viper pushed through the crowd, with his somewhat graying hair. He walked up to me in a daze. I hadn't seen him for a while, but Viper had aged so much. Now he looked like a 50-year-old middle-aged man. He looked at the shiny ring on the ring finger of my left hand, grabbed his own hair, and shouted in a breakdown, "Aria, how could you leave me and be with someone else? You can only marry me. Only me. Even if I don't want you. You can't marry someone else. In the previous life, didn't you follow me like a dog? Why has everything changed in this life?" Leo instinctively stood in front of me, grabbed Viper by the neck, and threw him to the ground. I squatted down, smiled playfully, and whispered in a voice only Viper could hear, "Because I was reborn with you guys." Just then, another figure came running out of the crowd shouting. She was disheveled, with bulging eyes, and rushed up to Viper with a knife in her hand. "Viper, you bitch. You promised to let me take revenge successfully and live a life of luxury. But this is how you treat me." Viper grabbed her wrist and roared, "I've traded 30 years of my life for your rebirth. What else do you want from me? You're just useless. You're inferior to Aria in every way. I was really blind to like you. Shut up, shut up." Vixen waved the knife, trying to make Viper stop talking. But at this time, Viper had given up all hope and kept saying things that hurt Vixen. I quickly pulled Leo out of the way. "Ah," with Vixen's scream. It seemed that Vixen's matter was just a passing cloud to him. Here the text seems a bit jumbled. I'll try to make sense of it. It was Viper, who had always been infatuated with her, holding the other end of the knife handle. Viper was in a state of confusion and kept muttering, "You're not worthy of me trading 30 years of my life for you. Give it back. Give it all back to me. Die. Die." Vixen never expected until her death she would end up dying at the hands of the man who gave her a new life. A tear of unwillingness flowed from the corner of her eye. She opened her mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. After killing Vixen, Viper took out his phone and looked at himself in the mirror. He hoped that his lost years of life would come back. But when he saw his wrinkled old face and his glaring white hair, he completely lost his mind and knelt on the ground, crying bitterly. Leo kindly called the police, and soon someone came to take Viper away. Later, 3 months after Leo and I got married, and news that Viper tried to pretend to be insane to escape legal punishment was on the hot search. Unfortunately, having fulfilled Lee, in the end, he was sentenced to life imprisonment and thrown into prison. At that time, Leo and I were in Antarctica watching penguins. I snuggled in Leo's arms and fell into a deep sleep. In a daze, I heard a mechanical voice talking to Leo, "Host, don't forget the promise you made when you let Aria be reborn. Got it? It's about being a penguin in the next life, right? Can't you see I'm scouting the environment in advance?" I suddenly woke up, stared at Leo in confusion, and tentatively asked, "Leo, do you think we should get a dog?" Leo replied instinctively, "No need. One bird in our family is enough." The end of the full text.